สำหรับหัวข้อแรกเนี่ยนะคะคือหลายคนจะรู้อยู่แล้วว่าทุกวันนี้เนี่ยเทคโนโลยีเราเปลี่ยนไปพฤติกรรมของผู้บริโภคก็เปลี่ยนไปด้วยเพราะฉะนั้นเดี๋ยวเรามาดูกันว่าเราจะจัดการกับแฟชั่นมาร์เก็ตเพลสได้ยังไงบ้างกับหัวข้อนี้ค่ะ New Millennial Fashion Consumer นะคะโดยคุณเจน Esteve ค่ะจาก Jayne Fashion Agency นะคะที่เธออยู่ในปารีสนะคะแล้วก็ยังเป็น Professor ของ IFM ด้วยนะคะหรือว่า Institut Français de la Mode จากประเทศฝรั่งเศสค่ะSo ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Miss Jayne Esteve, Jayne's Fashion Agency in Paris and Professor at IFM or Institut Français de la Mode.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here today and to be able to participate again on this second day in this wonderful initiative. The International Fashion Co-Design Symposium is really fundamental for the future of fashion and in Thailand. And every fundamentally interesting topic that was addressed yesterday and that's being covered here at the symposium will actually come to being and makes real sense when we apply it directly to the one that we should all pay attention to most of all, that's to say our fashion consumer. And he's changed so much this past decade. So I'd like to take this moment to deliver some ideas and some information that can help you understand this new fashion consumer a little bit better. First of all, let me very briefly introduce myself to you. I'm half English and half French. I have a multidisciplinary fashion activity based in Paris, which is built on 30 years of strategic and operational expertise within the international fashion industry. And my agency proposes a certain number of activities, consulting, events, and training. And I also teach in a certain number of schools. Here are some of the references, some of my customers. So my activities are always based around the idea that we should continue to strive to achieve a balance between creative intuition, inspirational culture, and economic reality. And this is always in tune with our customers' goals and skills. So this talk of mine that I've prepared for you this morning has been structured around 5 main points, which I will present to you briefly. Firstly, I would like to talk about, in a very concise and global way, but to set the scene, I'd like to contextualize the fashion market, today's fashion market, to understand some of the fundamental issues that are impacting the evolution of today's consumers. Am I speaking okay for the translation? It's okay? Secondly, we'll zoom into defining who the millennials are, because we're talking about millennials very much, but who are they exactly and how can we define them? That will set the scene. Then I'd like to share with you a certain number of observations and statements that we have to bear in mind when we understand not only the millennial but the new fashion consumer, because the new fashion consumer goes beyond the millennial, as you will see. And then I'd like to talk more about retail and the fashion marketplace, and so try to explain how this fashion marketplace and the retail situation has evolved tremendously and is still evolving and needs to evolve to suit the needs of this new fashion consumer. And lastly, I'll conclude with a few simple but I think important takeaways for you to bear in mind to think about how to seduce this new consumer. And if possible, I'd like to keep a little bit of time, maybe 10 minutes, so we can, I can answer some questions and we can exchange a little bit and be a little bit more interactive. So please, if you have any questions as we go along, don't hesitate to write them down and I'll do my best to try and answer. Okay, so this the first chapter, which is the fashion market context. It's obviously very, very fastly changing. It's an environment that is always changing. Fashion is a reflection of society, as you know. It always has been, historically and still today. And because we're in a very fast-moving era where things are escalating very, very quickly, of course, the environment is influencing the way the fashion system is evolving. So here I'm going to give you 6 or 7 strong statements that most of you already know, of course, but I think it's important to contextualize what we're talking about to define this new fashion consumer. So number 1, first of all, a few ideas around the global evolution, the global context evolution. So firstly, as you can see from these images, we're experiencing disruptive economical changes. They call it a crisis, but is it a crisis? Is it not just a transformation of the world we live in and the economical situation, because we're in this very moving and transmuting period? Is it a crisis or is it something else? Anyway, the important thing to say is that this economical environment has definitely changed very deeply the habits of consumption. And this is particularly true since 2008, 2009. And the millennials that we're talking about, they've grown up in this time of rapid change and economic difficulties. And this has obviously affected their outlook on the world, their outlook on life, and their expectations. And their worldview differs from that of previous generations, as does their set of priorities and their values and expectations. First point. Second point, recession leads to recovery. I put a question mark, but I think it's an affirmation. This is what we need to go towards. So due to this situation, consumers have become a lot more conscious about the act of buying, and they think twice before shopping. We can observe a decline in overconsumption compared with the golden years of consumerism in previous decades, where shop assistants were considered a little bit like waiters, and people just bought without thinking, overspending, and very often, particularly in Europe, delving into debt. This has impacted today's way of consuming fashion, of course, and I'm sure you can all see this in your day-to-day lives. And fashion consumers do not have the same needs. We talk about what do you need, but actually it's not a need anymore. When fashion consumers of today go to stores, it's more about desire. What do I desire? What do I dream about? What is going to make me want to buy? Why should I buy this garment? Because it's a question of desire. And I need to be seduced more about a whole brand concept, a history, etc. I need more than a product. The product has to be a good product, but I need a lot more. That was the second point. Third point of this global context. Yes, so I was putting that a new set of values has emerged from this situation. Third point, as you can see with this picture, is the importance of the ecological awakening. Now, we're still waking up very slowly. We're starting to open our eyes and maybe yawn a little bit. It's the beginning. We have a lot to do. But this ecological awakening is something that the millennial generation was born with, okay? And it's a new consciousness that's emerging, and it's gradually transforming social and economical values, and it gives way to a new way of thinking. And we can be asking ourselves questions such as, you know, no to greenwashing, a brand that sells itself as being eco-friendly or sustainable, but it's just marketing, will not work. People want the truth and authenticity. Questions like, what can I do for the planet? Or let's partnership together. Very important, especially during this symposium when we're talking about collaboration. Another question could be, or another affirmation would be, it's time to act responsibly and ethically. Sustainability is more than a concept. Let's go on the eco journey. And it's also more closely to our fashion industry about using organic and local raw materials, local manufacturing, fair living wages, recycling, and sustainability. So this is also an issue which is fundamental and that we have to bear in mind when we try to understand this new fashion consumer. Haha, this is a nice word. Fourth point is about, new values and emotions. And troubled times are urging us to go back to basics. And this is particularly true of the new fashion consumer. Authenticity, transparency are fundamental values that are rising to the surface. And humans, particularly millennials, want to experience positive emotions. They want to center on a value system that is positively, emotionally driven. And they want to believe in a better future. And they are seeking trueness and sincerity and authenticity in brands in all domains, even in fashion. So I'm definitely an advocate for this, and it's obviously a very important issue. Another point, which is my fifth point, as you can see here, is that we are experiencing an ICT revolution, information, communication, and technology. The rapid growth and innovation in digital systems are changing the way people think, behave, communicate, and work. It's bringing new ways to create and diffuse knowledge and disseminate information. Around 40% of the world population has an internet connection today. In 1995, not so long ago, it was less than 1%. The number of internet users has increased tenfold from 1999 to 2013. The first billion users was reached in 2005. The second billion users in 2010. The third billion in 2014, and today it's 3.5 billion across the world. That's 49.2% of humanity. That's astounding. Another point is innovation. We've embarked in this mind-blowing fourth industrial revolution. Billions of people, as I just said, are connected by mobile devices all over the world, and the way we create, communicate, and consume fashion is being totally transformed. The first and second industrial revolutions in the 18th and 19th centuries were based on water, steam, electric power, and they helped us to mechanize making clothing and textiles, challenging the traditional system of craftsmanship and craft-based production, which we really need today, and we need to be sure that we're not losing all that know-how with people who are retiring and stopping working. But more recently, a radical change that took place industrially was with the third industrial revolution, which took place in the latter half of the 20th century. I'm talking about the 1980s and the 1990s, and this gave way to numerous innovations, particularly physical, digital, and biological, and particularly digital in the fact that information technology and data analysis gave way to fast fashion systems. It allowed fast fashion to exist because you could be in a just-in-time organization, because you knew as you went along what was bought, and you could react very quickly. So this was a very big revolution. And today's revolution, which is the fourth industrial revolution, is powered by lots of innovation, from 3D printing to artificial intelligence and advances in biomaterials to even quantum computing. So I'd like to show you this. This is a student of mine from the ENSAD school in Paris, Clara Daguin, and she did this collection where she used electricity and light to make a body electric collection, and she was a finalist at the very prestigious competition in France called the Hier Young Designer Festival. So she was using technology to embody the extension of oneself and to incarnate a luminous persona. Another different point that we have to keep in mind, and this is really more talking and delving into the fashion context, is the world's economy that's completely international and completely global. So with this world economy that's global, it's becoming one gigantic market. And the fashion system and its primary actors have gone even more global and international, with worldwide giants such as Inditex or Uniqlo, who have really gone totally global, as we all know. One mustn't forget this is a character trait of fashion. And it's part of the system since haute couture began in 1858 in Paris with Charles Frederick Worth, the father of haute couture. Since the commerce of fashion existed, its scope has been international. Fashion constitutes a universal and therefore international language, mostly based on its universally visual impact. So this is a good chance for our industries, of course. We can note that the more global fashion gets through increasing interconnections via internet access and travel, the more, and this is very important for us all, the rise of the opposite becomes important. That is to say that relocalization arises, striving to put forward the assertiveness of individual and regional personalities and individualities. So global, you get the opposite, which is also relocalization. So this is very important, I think, for what's happening here in Thailand. The giants, of course, are trying to do this too. Someone like Uniqlo has just opened a store in London where the 2 top floors are based on having local British designers and musicians, etc. So they're trying to go local within a global brand. This happened before with the brand Topshop, that some of you might know. They have a store, particularly in Piccadilly Circus in London, where on the basement they've had for many years a place which is for young designers. Some are still students. So this localization is very important. It's going to get stronger. Another point is, of course, the fashion trend system and the fact that fashion is fast and worldwide. H&M has 3,600 stores across the world. It sells online in 22 countries, and Zara have more than 2,000 stores in 84 countries and sells online in 27 countries. So this isn't going to stop in one way, in one day. It's going to evolve, of course, but it's also bringing other opportunities because we have to offer something else. Okay, so just to talk a little bit more about fashion. Fashion today is everywhere. Fashion is everywhere. It's very difficult to not see fashion wherever we look. It's omnipresent in our society and it's all-encompassing. And the current environment in which fashion brands evolve is marked by the rise of this changing market. And competition, of course, is intensifying. So fashion is everywhere. Where is fashion? Well, fashion is on the catwalk. That's normal. This is where designers express and brands express their creative identity, their collection, etc. That's normal. Fashion is also on It Girls, in the magazines, and this is going to influence the consumer because the consumer can see these images in the magazines, on TV, etc., and it makes them think about what they would like to wear because they identify themselves to them. Fashion is, of course, on the high street, all over the world. Fashion is also in politics. So since Jacqueline Kennedy would wear couture dresses or your queen would wear beautiful dresses by Balenciaga or Balmain, this is also a way to promote and to talk about fashion and to popularize it. And today someone like Michelle Obama or Kate Middleton are very important. When Michelle Obama wears a dress by Target, which is a very accessible brand, the following day it's sold out. And when Kate Middleton wears something from Reiss, which is the same kind of thing, the following day it's sold out. And whatever she puts on George and her daughter, same thing. So they have a big impact. And here you can see, in a different way, Jean-Charles Castelbajac, a French designer, using the face of Obama on a dress. Fashion is, of course, very much linked to divertissement and cinema and music. And here you can see the important fashion magazine L'Officiel with Beyoncé on the front cover, or the red carpet. And more, fashion is very much linked to sports. And you can see here the co-brandings between brand sports and important designers, such as Stella McCartney with Adidas. But we could also see at the Olympic Games, for example, the national teams wearing uniforms designed by a famous national designer. So fashion really is everywhere. It's even on mass market products such as Coca-Cola Light. Here you can see the image of Karl Lagerfeld. So why is fashion everywhere? Fashion is everywhere also because the ICT revolution that I mentioned previously has allowed trends to be popularized with what has become the fast fashion system. Innovative designers at the helm of fashion houses or artistic directors of big fashion houses exercise their intuitive and artistic creative process to design and propose fashion ideas that will become trends by the market in the form of fashion stories, star products, color palettes, fabric choices, and these are dissected and analyzed and transformed into high street trends. Here's an example with the famous shoe designed by Isabelle Marant, the wedge sneaker that has actually now become a style of a shoe that everybody is able to make. So just to finish this part on trends, I'd like to just show how a basic and fundamental fashion trend can go really across all over. This is Yves Saint Laurent by Hedi Slimane. It was his first collection. It's the black and white trend. So this black and white trend, this is how it goes. It starts on the catwalk. So we have 2 seasons here. We have some excerpts from summer 2015 and some from the winter season. Of course, these are exaggerated trends because we're talking about communicating a strong brand identity. But these will then be transformed into the red carpet. So we have famous models, etc., it girls who are going to wear this before everybody else. They're photographed at events, and the consumer can see these images and starts to get ready for this trend. Then we have the magazines who say, okay, this is how you should do the black and white trend. And then we have the high street brands that communicate around this trend. And then we have the fashionistas all over the world who wear them. And it'll even delve into accessories, go into perfumery or cosmetics, and we can even find this trend in interior design. So another point I wanted to make before I finish this part is that fashion is made accessible, but also luxurious fashion is made accessible and desirable, and it's become much more than fashion trends that are accessible, because it's also about bringing these luxurious fashion design personalities to the general public and into the mass market segment worldwide. So this was initiated with the Karl Lagerfeld H&M collection in 2004, that's 12 years ago. And this last year, last November, it was Olivier Rousteing and Balmain who joined forces with H&M to create a 100-piece collection. It was a capsule collection for men and women, and it was sold through a number of flagship stores. I don't know if you had this in Bangkok, I'm sure you did. It was sold out very quickly. And so it's making this idea of fashion accessible to the general public. And it also makes celebrities accessible to the general public, because Olivier Rousteing has his whole fashionista team with the Kardashians, etc. And when you buy a piece of his H&M piece, you're buying a piece of this world, even though the piece is 100 times or 50 times cheaper than a real Balmain jacket. Okay, so that was the contextualization part that I wanted to talk to you about. Second point, just briefly, so we know what we're actually talking about, who are millennials? Because we keep saying millennials, 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 but who are they actually? So millennials actually comprise now 2 different generations, the Y generation and the Z generation. The millennials were, as the name suggests, were born around the turn of the 21st century, around the year 2000. Demographically, there are 2 billion millennials across the world. 86% of millennials are living in emerging markets, in Asia, in Brazil, in India. And they are taking over the number of baby boomers who were the previous biggest generation, you know, the ones that were born after the Second World War. Millennials are therefore the generation that make up the largest segment and the most future purchasing power. And their estimated world combined purchasing power globally is $10 trillion. For apparel, it's $2.45 trillion. So you can see they're really big, and they're going to get bigger and bigger. They are money conscious, and they are always careful about what they buy. But this doesn't mean that they don't spend their money. They do spend their money. And as the world's current young adults, they're today's trendsetters, which means that they give a window into the future, and by looking at them, we understand what other generations are going to want because they ripple out into the other generations. Older generations are going to assimilate the behavior of millennials. So, millennials are made up of Generation Y and Z. And if we look more closely at Generation Y are today's young adults. They were born between 1985 and about the year 2000. So they are between 16 and 30 years old. And they are today's young adults. We can split them into two groups. We can split them into the 15 to 25-year-olds. These are usually still living at home or going to college. They're still dependent financially on their parents. And we also have a second split that can be between 25 and 30. And these are starting to make aspirational choices and purchases and settling into adult life. So there are other words that you can find and you can hear when we're talking about the Generation Y. You may have heard of echo boomers. Echo boomers, it's because they're the baby boomer, they are the children of the baby boomers. The net generation, this is because they grew up with the internet. The boomerang generation can be heard sometimes. This is because they tend to move back home after they've been to college. And this goes with the Peter Pan generation that you can hear about, which is that they delay the rites of passage into adulthood longer than the generations before them. They stay much closer to home base. So I said that this millennial generation is made up of Y generation and Z generation. The Z generation are today's teenagers, some of our kids. They were born around 2001, 2003, and they're between 13 and 12, 15 years old. So they are today's teenagers. They have an intuitive relationship with technology, and they are what we call participative web users, as opposed to before where we were a little bit more static. This is because they've never known the world without the web. And they use the web in a continuous way and have integrated certain applications in their everyday daily life in a very natural way. So they use YouTube a lot for listening to music and watching videos. They use Facebook not to chat or anything, but to make announcements and to organize events. They use Instagram to communicate their creative aesthetics and their personal branding in a fun and creative way. Thank you. And they're using more and more an application called Snapchat to share photos and communicate in a fun and creative way. 70% of Snapchat users are below 20 years old. I've tried to get my head around Snapchat, and honestly, I still find it very difficult, so I must be getting very old. My daughters use it, though. And each world region has developed its own specific applications, such as WeChat in China and Line here in Thailand. So Generation Z is also named by other terminologies. We talk about the Alpha generation, which signifies its new rapport with technology. And watch closely, we also call it the Generation C. Now, C, co-design, yes, means communication, means collaboration, it means connection and creativity. So I think for us today at this symposium, it's very interesting to note that we also talk about this new generation as the C generation. The Z generation is globally much more emancipated from brand culture, contrary to the Y generation. They show a little bit of a rejection sometimes to the specific style. They don't want to have a normal look, and they don't want to have a total look imposed to them. They need to be creative. So another thing is that they're less materialistic, and they are definitely very much need to have comfortable and practicality in their garments. Their uniform, the Z generation, is, you can imagine, sweatshirts, trainers, baseball caps, baggy pants, leggings, in a stylish way, of course. Second point about the millennial, generation is, my third point is to talk about the new fashion consumer. So this new fashion consumer is, I want to talk about this new fashion consumer now through the idea of the importance of identity and communication. So, as I already said, this is the first generation that was born and that grew up with the internet, which has made them, adaptable to any convenience of device or applications. They don't know the world without the web, so they are digitally intuitive. And there are a certain amount of digital platforms, such as YouTube, as I said, or Instagram, that enable them to create personal brands. 72 hours are put online every minute on YouTube across the world. And 116,000 pictures, photos are shared on Instagram every minute. Can you imagine what that means? It's absolutely huge. This is an example of a young lady I know who's English and has also lived in Australia, and she has over 20,000 followers, and this is her Instagram page. So she's built her image around this Instagram page, and she's now a brand ambassador for L'Oreal and for Kerastase and for beauty companies. So you can use this, this can be used for personal branding. This is an example. This is an example also of how Pinterest can be used. Pinterest is interesting in a way that you work with themes. So if you're looking for a certain theme, it's a great way to find information. And it's also a way to talk about who you are and what your aesthetics are, personal branding. And I really like this advertisement by McDonald's because it said, come as you are. This is very important. Millennials, they want to be who they are. They can have several identities, in fact, but, they need to be who they are. And millennials, they live on an online community. They are individually collective. You can often see groups, of people together, but they're all individually on their devices. They live on an online community and are extremely connected. They're social. They love to share. And they are 4 times more likely to share information on social media networks as older generation. And shopping has become a social event. When they are shopping, they take photos and they share and they see how the reactions are and they decide to buy or not depending on the reaction. So it's very important, this whole aspect, individually collective. The whole friends and sharing is really important, and having likes and followers also. So it's all about communication. Another aspect of this is they've kind of become addicted also, because it's this idea of FOMO, fear of missing out. If you're not connected, you might miss something. So the fashion millennial is a smartphone addict and looks for information, shares his tastes and opinions, and also buys fashion online, of course. Here are a few examples of bloggers. This is Susie Bubble, and she has a huge amount of followers. And there are lots and lots of social creatives that use mobile devices and applications to share their views, give opinions, and they are trendsetters. Okay, so now after we spoke about identity and communication, let's look at fashion and style. So I've chosen a few specific trends that I think are very important for us to have in mind when thinking about this millennial consumer. Some are a little bit contradictory at times, but the millennials can also be contradictory, and in fact, they claim that they love contradiction, okay? So it's quite normal. So, first statement, it's all or nothing. Contradiction rules. So contradiction, as I just said, is normal. They can be super cool in an athletic way, expressing a basic neutral style. And they can also be extremely attracted to excessiveness, exuberance, auto-derision, which is often a way that they find to move away from this morose atmosphere that they were born in. Whatever the choice, the millennial fashion consumer will reject codes, predefined codes. On the same side, on the same side of this, and on the opposite side of the spectrum to the cool attitude, we have the importance of fashion as a divertisement. Fashion has to be fun. Fashion is about influencers. Fashion is about certain celebrities. That some are cool, some are not cool. That's for them to decide. And when they are interested in influencer celebrities, it's a way to buy a certain status that goes with certain brands. And they feel as if they're buying that as they're doing it. And they feel as if they are belonging to a tribe, which has a certain aesthetic. And it's good to say, we're part of this, we think this is cool. For example, there's a very important brand that's become very famous called Vêtements. The designer is now the Balenciaga designer, and they can sell a DHL logo T-shirt for several hundred euro, which says, and when you buy it, it's like, look, I'm part of this. I know what I'm wearing. It's a DHL Vêtements T-shirt. And there's also the importance of brands like Gucci or the French designer Jacquemus. And it's a lot more about celebrities that are wearing also these garments. Kanye West, Kim Kardashian, etc. Rihanna are huge influencers. So second statement was that fashion is also a divertisement for them. Third statement is that it's all about hybridation and juxtaposition. Hybridation is misappropriation, taking things from one area and putting them in another way, and juxtaposing different things to create your own personal look. So we have to not forget that they've grown up in this fast digital society, and they like to go from one thing to another and open up new frontiers, and they're quite innovative in that way. So they like to mix different styles and different elements to create a new look. So it's not about, you'll have understood, a total look. It's about juxtaposing different styles and eras. And they like to break established codes and invent new hybrid styles. Fourth statement is a little bit different, but very important. This is also about hybridation and juxtaposition. I'm going to have to move on because I have a lot to say still. And this is about normcore. So normcore is a trend that mixes two words which are normal and hardcore. This is an advertisement by Gap. It's a good illustration. It's about dressing yourself to be authentic and simple. And it's also a reaction to the overwhelming popularity of fashion. So it combats, it's a little bit social and political, in fact, when it's really pushed, and it combats preconceived notions of people and the way they dress and follow fashion. Here's another example, another publicity by Gap. Another fundamentally important and definitely important to bear in mind for the future is the idea of genderless, neutral fashion. Garments are more and more neutral. They can be described as a third or complementary gender that's going to work for both men and women. So here this is a new line by Zara called Ungendered. And the idea is that we move away from cliché, what's girly or what's manly, and it has to be loose and comfortable, basic and casual, but also trendy and stylish. It's a kind of low-pressure dressing. And here are a few examples. So it's also a genderless neutral. This is a little bit different, but it's still part of the same movement. It's by J.W. Anderson, the Northern Irish designer, who's also artistic director at Loewe. And he's developed, first of all, he developed XXS. He's a masculine menswear designer, and he developed XXS sizes for his women customers, and he's also using a women wardrobe to make garments for men. This is obviously exaggerated, it's on the catwalk, but the idea here is that he's changing it to be more manly in the sense that the colors and the fabrics used are from the menswear wardrobe. No logo and vintage brands also goes with the idea of doing your own minimalistic and your own creative look. And this is very fundamental and stems from what we just said. I call it the coolitude or the cool attitude. It's a very strong underlying current of the zeitgeist, or we call l'air du temps, or what we call the sign of our times. It's more about a look. It's about an aesthetic behavior. It's cultural. It's a way of being. It's an attitude. It's a style that evokes the contradiction of a certain self-control, but in a nonchalant way. It also describes a certain savoir-être, a way of living detached from the world's problems. And we have some very important brands who are working around this, such as Vêtements, I already talked about, Y Project, or a French brand called Wonder Island. And it's also what global brands like Uniqlo are working on. They're collaborating with cool lifestyle designers such as Jill Sander or Inès de la Fressange. And recently, Uniqlo has employed the French designer Christophe Lemaire, who's gone from Hermès to Uniqlo to work around this kind of wardrobe. So it's about comfort, attitude, utility. Something completely different now, which is also interesting, is what we call the twee attitude. So the twee attitude is a North American and an Asian phenomenon, and it incarnates sweetness, positiveness, niceness. A twee is a nice person, someone maybe a little bit naive, but it's about delicacy, charm, sweetness. It comes from the mispronunciation of the word sweet into tweet. And there's also a musical movement called twee pop. So it's about using simple things. It's about riding a bike. It's about wearing vintage accessories. And I think this is also something that's interesting to look about. And to finish this part, I'd like 3 strong words about the attitude of the millennial fashion consumer. Number 1 is about extreme unicity. So personal identity is very important. It's part of their lives, as I just explained. And they're obsessed by a certain type of extreme beauty, which is noticeable and conveys a strong action. Second statement is IWWI, difficult to pronounce. It says, I want what I want when I want it. And millennials don't want to be frustrated. They're so used to having everything directly on their applications that they are in this instantaneous frame of mind. And they want what they want now. And they expect a lot more. And the third thing is, that goes with this is the idea of what we are talking about now in the fashion system, which is the see now, buy now idea. So what is it? It means that luxury brands that propose to sell their collections as soon as the catwalk show takes place, and not 6 months later, which is the case. So what's the point? This is because I want whatever I want, when I want it. They want to be able to buy what they see, and because they can actually see the collections streaming or directly on the internet, they want to have those products straight away. So I'm going to have to move on a little bit because I think time is running by. So how can we bear this in mind now and think about particularly retail and how to handle the fashion marketplace? Well, of course, the new fashion consumer wants to enjoy a unique customer experience, whether it's in-store or online. There are 4 main consumer behaviors. We have the full web consumer, the full store consumer, the showroomer. The showroomer is someone who's going to go into the store, look at products, and buy them online. And we have the ropo, who's going to do the opposite, research online and purchase in the store. They're complex, and they expect a lot, and they're fast, and they're everywhere. So they want to have what we call a seamless shopping experience, whether it's on my phone, on my computer, in the store, in the window. There are about 20 touch points possible with the consumer. It has to be seamless. They have to be in the same place. And this is very important. They want to be able to use both in and out, whatever. And they want to be satisfied individually. They want you to look at them individually, and they want you to satisfy their personal desires. They want a lot more than just a product. They can buy products on the internet, but if they go into a store, they want a lot more. So they want to be advised. They want to be treated uniquely. They want to be pampered. They want to be understood. And they want to be advised by professionals. They want someone who can really explain the collection, the trends, the products, choose the right products that suits them. And they want to experience a lot more. Whatever you do that will bring some knowledge into to the customer to explain craftsmanship, everything that you do that will be an added value is going to be very helpful for the millennial. And the millennial also is into innovation, not gimmicky innovation, not something that's just there for show, but something that's going to be useful, such as being able to customize a product. They want to be taken care of again, as I said, not just thrown the shoes and get on with it, but actually help them to try them on and tell them about how to look after their products. So it means, and Burberry are very important for this, that we're moving from a web-to-store strategy to a web-in-store strategy, and we're talking about retail entertainment. And we're talking about the connected phygital store. Again, not in a gimmicky way, but in a very profound, positive way. And we want to create interaction. It's also a way of increasing your offer because you can show more than that you actually have in the store. You can serve your customers better. You can know about your customers better. And you can help staff to be more available because with digital, you can take away a lot of the chores that they have to do normally. So the connected digital store is important, and the web is going to help before shopping, during shopping, and after shopping. So it's to be integrated all the way through. These are just a few examples of how digital can be used. Selfridges and Nike here with the interactive window. We use social networks for purchasing or for using Facebook, for example, here. We can have interconnected interactive mirrors and digital changing rooms. This is Rebecca Minkoff in New York. And it's really a way to optimize the brand experience and the brand identity. This is Topshop and their 360-degree virtual experience catwalk show. So it's all about constant renewal and see now, buy now. And to finish, how can we win over this millennial consumer? Just a few simple words. It's going to be very simple and short, but I think for me, it's effective. Number one, you have to be consumer-centric and human-centric. This is a new business model. You have to integrate the human-centricness and concentrate on building relationships and having a new company vision. We can't work alone. We have to work together. Thirdly, you have to place your customer at the heart of your strategy. And even think like a customer. Whoever you are, the designer, the marketer, whoever, think like a customer. And always think about creating proximity and giving a true customer experience. This applies to retail, but not only. This applies to everybody in the textile and clothing chain. And lastly, think about your brand as a beacon. Always think about the experience that one can get from your brand. And place the human dimension at the heart of your brand. Redefine your brand strategy. Think about your identity. Train your sales team to sales excellence. Whether you're selling to a manufacturer, if you're doing textiles, whether you're selling to a retailer, to a wholesaler, it's all about sales excellency. Have a personal shopper attitude. Be your brand ambassador, etc. And to conclude, number one, always think about your DNA, think about the promises and the values that you're giving. Implement a consumer-centric business model and know-how. Create a seamless omnichannel strategy if you're able to go all the way through to retail and using digital. Always aim to create a brand experience and invest in your sales team to create an enchanting in-store experience. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, madame. Thank you. So I've heard that you like to give some around 10 minutes for the Q&A section, right?
If anybody would like to say something, add something, or ask some questions, that would be great, because I love interaction. I'm a millennial, even though I'm 50.
มีท่านไหนมีคำถามไหมคะ สามารถถามได้เลยนะคะ ถามเป็นภาษาไทยก็ได้ค่ะ เดี๋ยวมันจะแปลเป็นภาษาอังกฤษให้นะคะ
I don't say I can answer every question, because nobody knows everything, but maybe I can help.
มีท่านไหนมีคำถามไหมคะ Any question please?
Don't be shy.
พี่หมูมีคำถามไหมคะ พี่หมูยิ้มมาพอดี
Was it so clear?
เข้าใจรู้เรื่องเนาะนะคะนี่เป็นเรื่องราวของการเรียกว่าพฤติกรรมของผู้บริโภคมีการเปลี่ยนไปนะคะเพราะว่าเทคโนโลยีเราก็เปลี่ยนไปตามยุคตามสมัยเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยเราจะทำยังไงให้สามารถที่จะจับใจของผู้บริโภคได้สามารถที่จะเรียกว่าจัดการกับ marketplace ที่เกี่ยวกับเรื่องของแฟชั่นต่างๆได้เป็นอย่างดีนะคะนี่ก็เป็นแนวคิดหนึ่งแล้วก็เป็นไอเดียที่น่าสนใจมาก
I totally agree with you.
Alright, any question?
Okay, we've got lots of interesting speakers coming behind, so thank you and have a great day. Hope
Thank
to
you
see
very
again.
much. Merci beaucoup. ขอบคุณค่ะ